all this is Cincinnati. These are like five. These are angel investors, VCs, big co's, blah 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 blah. It's like Centrifuge. A startup walks in there, and then like it's like Centrifuge represents all that in Cincinnati. And when you go to them, you can talk to 20 people, and they connect you with all the resources. That kind of how your experience was.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they started making introductions from the venture capital front, making introductions. They helped us secure our very first beta client to test our product. We were blessed to have Paycor out of the gate to test, which was amazing. Having a company that kind of plays in our world.
Yeah.
And then they needed a recruiter to recruit for their company, but they found a recruiter from Tiller to recruit traditionally. It breaks your brain when you start to think about it. But having that introduction was amazing. Talking to, Bill over at Paycor and having them be willing to take a chance on us and our crazy idea that you could eliminate bias in recruitment if you change the method by, judgment, using skills. They took the chance. And a lot of others, were willing to take the chance. And it was simply because they were dedicated to helping startups rise up, and they were dedicated to the thought of what Centrifuge represented and that kind of hub ecosystem that entrepreneurs could go to and lean into.
Yeah, it's like your first steps of success were just like those catalysts, because no one, you're a new startup and people ask you, it's almost like you're a fresh college grad. It's like, where have you worked? You need some battle stories to say, like, some success stories for people to vouch for you.
Yeah.
But the startup ecosystem here, and I think also the big co's, something that Tarek Camille was saying was, his first companies or someone that vouched for him were big co's. And after that, everyone around the region was to vote for you.
Sure.
And then Paycor, was that someone that was one of your first customers? And
yeah.
After they vouched for you, other people vouched for you.
Other people, yeah, for sure. And I think you do need that, the spark, right? Like you need that catalyst to push you forward. Mm-hmm. And you need organizations that are willing to go through the muck with you, right? Like out of the gate, your baby's going to be ugly. Our product wasn't the prettiest. We definitely had, some learning curves to make. Of course, like that's a part of having an MVP and validating it and looking at product market fit. That's what you do. But you need, an individual or a group or a company that's saying, we got you. Don't worry. You're going to fall down. We get it. That's what's going to happen. That's fine. That is absolutely transformational to have that. And, here in Cincinnati and in the region, we have access to the biggest companies in the world. And it's like, when you go outside and you hear about Cincinnati, they're like, oh, what do you guys have? Like cornfields? And like, what? Like we're the largest, the conglomeration of Fortune 500 companies in the world are here. So talk about a network or a spider effect. Like the network effect here is amazing. I'm one call basically out to somebody in Cincinnati to basically the rest of the world. And for startups, that makes a big difference. Now, it doesn't mean you're always going to do business with a lot of the local big co's, but that doesn't mean the people that work for the big co's won't vouch for you and help you get into, others in other regions and help you grow and expand for sure.
Or even the other startups in town, like that are pretty successful. They'll bring you on like
Absolutely.
Like Lassant, Listener, all the big startups.
I don't know there are very few founders I've ever talked to in the city that are more than happy to bend over backwards to help you succeed, because at the end of the day, whenever we have a success story in our city, it rises us all up. That means there's more venture capital looking at the city. There's more investments coming in from the big co's and taking the leap on innovation, and all of that adds up.
It's almost as if like all the startup founders in Cincinnati should have like a group me page.
You're right.
Like a Slack channel.
Right.
Be like, we got some VCs coming to town.
Right.
Like,
yeah. Well, we do have a Slack channel.
And you do?
Startup Cincy. Yeah, we do it. We do hit each other up. Everything from what the heck did you do when this scenario occurred to, hey, I've got a job opening. Do you have anybody that you guys interviewed that we could take that might fit our culture better than your culture? And that makes our lives a lot easier than going to Google and being that lone, group of founders like trying to make it or break it.
Yeah, so. That's the like the typical scenario when people think of startups. They're just like, like trying to get in with like Google or like some
Right.
some big
Yeah.
like tech company you see on like HBO show like
Yeah.
Silicon Valley, but like no, it's like it's the people in your backyard. I mean, they're rock stars too, and together they bring like a real powerhouse.
Yeah, and I think the Midwest has been underrated for a while. I think we've definitely got new momentum coming out of the Midwest, and we're seeing a mass exodus from Silicon Valley, coming now to our town. Same thing with New York. We've got tons that are kind of leaving that lifestyle and realizing that there's more to life than just making your mark writing code at a cool company in Palo Alto, that you can make your mark on your community too. At the end of the day, when you're this teeny tiny fish in a gigantic pond, it's really, really hard, to feel a sense of community and, to feel pride in that. And here, that's what we thrive on.
What do you think Cincinnati can improve on?
VCs.
VCs?
Without a doubt, funding.
That's pretty quick.
Funding. I think that's something, we don't have a ton of venture cap funds located here that are doing investments after the seed round. So when you're a startup like us, we had to raise, all of our investment came from angels, and none of them were in the state of Ohio or Kentucky or Indiana, nothing from the Midwest. I have investors that are in the Bahamas or Brazil or London, in Canada, because we couldn't raise here just because the access wasn't as great here. And it's just, I think we're just about 5 years too early from a Series A standpoint or a Series B standpoint, where we have a lot of great venture funds that happen to be, situated here. Part of that is going to be kind of the mind shift that the Midwest does produce amazing tech. That's got to change, first and foremost. But then I also think that we're going to see a lot of the venture companies that have kind of gotten over the coasts. We're going to see them come here as well. We just need a few big hits. Hopefully Toller will be one of them. If not, I'm sure there will be another amazing company that's going to hit it big. And then all of a sudden, again, all eyes on us here in the town to get more venture capital here. So I think that that's something that's needed. You can only bootstrap so long. You can only be a major player so long before you really need, that, investment to come in and support the startups for sure. But we've done really well with seed stage. I think we're doing good on friends and family rounds around here where, a lot of the angel kind of networks are doing good. Accelerators and incubators are awesome in our town, but from an outside investment standpoint, we still do need, I think, more venture cap coming in, to take companies into the scale phase of their business and not just taking it from conception into, kind of existence or into MVP.
Why do venture capitalists want to only invest in people that are like in their city? Like I heard in Silicon Valley, they're like, if you're not here, you might be from Cincinnati, but if we invest in you, you're gonna come to Silicon Valley.
Yeah, I think it's just logistics. It's easier, man. Like at the end of the day, typically a venture fund will usually appoint somebody to your board, and so that means they have to meet with you pretty consistently. And so just the sheer thought of traveling across the country can be a bit daunting. So a lot of companies, especially out of Silicon Valley, they'll only invest in Silicon Valley businesses. They'll entertain those of us in the Midwest or outside. But to your point, they'll say, we really want you to relocate to Palo Alto or in the vicinity. And it's more from a time scenario and an interaction and being highly involved with the business.
What was your challenges in going from maybe like 4 to 3 locations 2016, going to like 23, 24 now?
Mind share, I think. I think it's all about understanding, having the opportunity to really understand a city and the nuances that every city has. Here we are in Cincinnati. We don't have transportation. Public transportation is not a thing here.
Me, please.
Right? Like it's not a thing here. All of a sudden thinking about a workforce that relies 100% on public transportation. That's a totally different beast in and of itself. That also has to adapt our product. Those are nuances that instead of how far are you willing to travel and it being miles, like all of a sudden we're in cities where they're saying just a few blocks, or I'm on this, line on the train. Like that's what we have to consider. So those were, I think, big, big challenges to overcome. And then just, the types of industries that are served in particular cities. Maybe the unemployment rate in that city might look different. The workforce or the skill set might look different. So those are all new things that we had to consider, and things that we've had to really improve upon on our product as well. So not just from a marketing standpoint, it's been a lot of great product improvement that we've made, simply for the cool nuances that we're seeing that we just didn't anticipate.
Working here must be like just like a race car.
Yeah.
You're just moving super fast.
Yeah. And it's been interesting because, we have a lot of fire drills, and, I've been very particular in making sure people understand, like, don't pull the fire drill cord knowing that, if everything is urgent, nothing is urgent, right? Like if everything is an emergency or everything has to get done right this second, then nothing gets done, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think you have to take that step back when you're on a rocket ship and be very thoughtful on how you're building and scaling the business and thinking about it strategically. And I spend a lot of my, most of my time is here in our Cincinnati office. So we've got, operations, our marketing team, sales, and our fulfillment team. And the product team happens to be up in Toronto, Canada. So, although we're one team, we are two different locations, two different countries. Yeah. Thankfully, we're all on the same, on the same time zone. But we have to be very, thoughtful on how we communicate with one another, and then really engaging as one unit versus siloing so much today, knowing that segmentation and siloing of our teams are going to get more and more defined as time goes on, as we scale. But yeah, really leaning into some of the culture stuff has been really important to us too, because man, burnout can happen fast in this world. Yeah. And it's part of my job as the founder, and helping my team not burn out, understanding how to communicate with each other when you're on a rocket ship screaming to the back, like, hold on, we got to get through this. So yeah, it's becoming a fun part of our world too.
That's cool. What advice would you give? I mean, I would call yourself a powerhouse in marketing. I mean, you've had a lot of experience over the years. Yeah. What's your advice for startups and doing marketing for today?
Yeah, I think the number one thing is really understanding your buyer and really understanding it from an empathy perspective. And it's something my poor team has heard me talk about so often, and we do so much of the empathy mapping. But what we always talk about is understanding from a psychological perspective why people buy. And that is probably more important than any other tool that you're going to use or any outlet you're thinking about, is understanding psychologically where that person is when they make that decision. Because you can build everything from there, right?
You said where they are when they make that decision?
Yeah, when they make a buying decision, or what are going through the process when they're making that decision. So that it's, we're a dual-sided marketplace. We've got workers and we've got companies. So we have two different avenues we have to think about. So what is that pain point, and what problem are you trying to solve for that business, or what problem are you trying to solve for that individual? And then really building out a plan or a model around that. And, if you're having challenges on any aspect of the pull through from a sales perspective, it's usually attributed to those interaction points, and not clearly defining what problem you're trying to solve for, and understanding the psychological need that individual or buyer has.